What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about Ultimate Adventures 110 Soldier. This was a 6-issue miniseries written by Ron Zimmerman and drawn by Duncan Fegredo. Ron Zimmerman was a movie producer first and foremost. I looked him up. I guess he's famous for three things: movie production. He was a buddy to the Howard Stern crew, all of them, and then he wrote a few comic book things in the early 2000s. He wrote a Spider-Man miniseries called Get Kraven, which when I was first getting into new at the time comics, like buying comics new off the shelf, I remember I was buying various issues of Extreme X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, and there would be like a little 4-page short featuring Spider-Man. And there was, I remember one of them was him teaming up with Kraven the Hunter's son in a bar fighting all of these other supervillains, and then at the end, after they've beaten all of them, they turn around and then there's the real Kraven. And as far as I know, Kraven was supposed to be dead, so I guess that was like a big deal that Kraven was back. I have not even thought about the phrase Spider-Man Get Kraven for like 20 years. I had forgotten that that thing even existed. I'm not really much of a Spider-Man fan. I have no idea what people's thoughts are on Get Kraven. Zimmerman also wrote a Rawhide Kid miniseries with the Max imprint, which is Marvel's adult imprint, and that, I guess, is famous or infamous, depending on how you think of it, for making the Rawhide Kid gay. I haven't read it. I don't know how it portrays that transformation, if you will, but it being in the early 2000s, I'm going to say it probably didn't handle it too well, if I had to guess. I don't know. And then there's this, which is very weird. So the Ultimate Universe, as you probably know, started in the early 2000s as a remodeling of the main Marvel Universe. We're going to be hip and cool and edgy and very modern, and we're going to reference the Clinton administration. I don't know why I did this for Clinton administration, but you read like one of the first issues of Ultimate X-Men, and Bobby's talking about, yeah, when Clinton was in the office and he okayed the production of Sentinels, and I'm just thinking like, whoa, like, when I first started reading comics, Clinton being in office seemed like an eternity ago, and now I'm thinking, like, wow, like, you guys are trying to be, like, modern, and then here you are referencing something that, especially now, feels like it was 400 years ago. Anyway, so you have the restructuring of the Marvel Universe, if that's a good way to say it, where you've got characters, they're hip and edgy and cool, and then for some reason Ron Zimmerman said, what if we did that with Batman and Robin in the Ultimate Universe? So you look at this cover, that's very clearly Batman and Robin. Here's another cover, alright, so very clearly that's Batman off in the distance here, and then that's Robin, right? So I don't get it. I don't know why he wanted to do this. And after this miniseries, these characters never show up again in the Ultimate Universe. I remember thinking, after Ultimatum, which was basically everyone's get-out-of-jail-free card, we're going to clean house, get rid of a whole bunch of these characters in the Ultimate Universe, and we're going to have kind of a new status quo for a lot of these characters. So now the X-Men, mutants are illegal, and the X-Men are underground, and some of the X-Men are in a concentration camp, and Jean Grey is starting a new team and stuff like that, and here's a new version of the Fantastic Four and a new version of the Ultimates. I was kind of expecting at that point that we would see Hawkowl, that's the adult here, the Batman of this duo. I was kind of expecting that we would see Hawkowl show up, and then the twist would be, that's not the original Hawkowl, that's actually Woody, that's the little kid of the duo, that's actually Woody, and now he's older, he's like 17 or 18, and now he is the new Hawkowl. I was expecting something like that. I thought that kind of would have been neat. They never did that. Anyway, this is basically Batman and Robin if everybody is awful. This is really weird. First of all, it actually has a historical connection that I only vaguely remember. This was part of a campaign that Marvel was doing where they were pitting three series that were going on at the time against each other. It was called the You Decide campaign. It was Marvel, written by Bill Jemas. I've never read it. I know that when you look at the cover, it's very clear that that's a parody of Smallville. but I have to assume, it being a miniseries, that there was a little bit more than a blatant parody of Smallville going on there. I don't know. Then there was this series, and then there was Peter David's Captain Marvel series. And these three, apparently, basically, the premise of the You Decide campaign was, which of these series do you think is going to last the longest? It's a really weird move for Marvel to basically have a competition between three of their titles, and they're basically saying, which two do you guys think are just complete duds, and wow, these idiots think that they can make comics. It's really weird. Also, at the time, Peter David already had like 10 years of writing comics under his belt. Bill Jemas, he's done a few things, but I don't think that he had as much experience as a writer. I think he's more known as an editor. And then Ron Zimmerman is, I think, what Kevin Smith would call a carpetbagger, who just comes in from another career and says, I'm going to write some comics, and then leaves. Like I said, I looked him up, and I could find that he wrote 3 comic book things. So it's really weird that you would take 2 of the stories that are not written by someone who is traditionally known as a comic book writer and say, are either of these going to be the comic that's written by the well-loved Peter David, who's been writing comics for 10 years? So I do remember seeing like a poster at what was my local comic book shop at the time for the You Decide campaign. I remembered that, and I didn't go, if it was a thing where you could vote, I didn't do that, but that is a kind of odd, I guess if anyone remembers this miniseries at all, other than like Duncan Fegredo, who worked on it, if anyone remembers it at all, it might be for that, seeing that online. But anyway, I need to make sure I have enough time, because I'm really going to need to get deep into this. So basically, like I said, this is Batman and Robin if every character in the story is just awful. So it starts off, we got this kid, Hank. He is like a 13-year-old orphan. He's living at this orphanage. Basically, he is a little snot. He is rude to everybody. The little kids at the orphanage, the adults at the orphanage. He is just the worst. And I guess the book is trying to say, well, he has it bad. He's 13 and nobody has adopted him up until now, and he even says, nobody's going to. I'm way too old to be adopted. It's never going to happen. And I'm kind of looking at it saying like, yeah, I hate that you haven't been adopted, but it looks to me like a chicken and egg situation. Maybe nobody's adopted you because you are a little snot and you are awful to everyone that you talk to. And then some thugs just come in and they're hiding out from robbing somewhere, and they say, we're going to hide in here, and then one of the little baby orphans wakes up and starts screaming, and then Hawk Owl comes in and beats them up, and then the next day, this guy, Danner. I don't remember his first name. His last name is Danner. It's confusing because the Alfred of the book, his name is Daniel Tolliver, but then the Bruce Wayne of the book, his last name is Danner. It's not Hugo, I don't think. I don't remember his first name. So throughout reading this, I see someone say something to Daniel, and I see someone say something to Danner, and I kept thinking, maybe you could have just called Danner something else, or call Daniel like Lewis or Levi or something like that. You got 2 names that are very similar, almost the same name until the last couple letters, and so that was kind of bouncing around in my brain throughout the book. But then Bruce Wayne comes to the orphanage and says, I'm going to adopt one of you kids, and he ends up adopting the surly kid, Hank. And then later we find out that his express purpose for adopting this kid was so that he could train a sidekick. That was why he adopted Hank. And Hank at one point says, I'm going to call child services, and the book is kind of playing it like a joke, but honestly, yeah, call child services, because a lot of people make light of Bruce Wayne, child endangerment, ha, why does Robin wear red so Batman doesn't get shot? Yeah, we've heard it all before, but I have never seen a Robin origin story where Bruce Wayne adopts Robin with the explicit purpose of, you know what, scratch that. I guess All-Star Batman and Robin, Batman kidnaps Robin to turn him into a sidekick. I haven't read that, so I'm going to say that one doesn't count. Most of the Robin origin stories that I've read, like I read Year 3 recently in the Tales of the Batman Marv Wolfman book, and it kind of is one of the earliest I can think of examples of getting into Dick Grayson's early years and kind of fleshing fleshing that out a little bit. And in that, Bruce Wayne adopts Dick Grayson to give him a better life than what he had when he was a kid. He's not doing this explicitly to turn Dick into a killing machine who can go out here and break someone's bones in 15 different ways. That was not Bruce Wayne's purpose when adopting Dick Grayson. And so even though that is what happened, that wasn't the intention. And so I feel like, okay, it's okay that Bruce adopted Dick Grayson. But when I read this, it's like, wow, everyone here is awful. And then you got the chauffeur. So I said this is basically Batman and Robin. You've also got like 10% of it is also kind of the Green Hornet. And it kind of feels very much like Kevin Smith's Green Hornet comics, which were based on a screenplay that Kevin Smith wrote. And I'm wondering if Ron Zimmerman was a movie producer, if he was aware of Kevin Smith's Green Hornet screenplay that never got made, and then he kind of puts a little bit of that into this, because the chauffeur, he is basically Kato. He even has the hat, kind of like Kato, and we find out later in the book, his father actually trained him, Alfred, and Bruce Wayne, which is very similar to Kevin Smith's Green Hornet, which has got this new kid being trained by the original Kato, and then you've got a younger Kato who's like a granddaughter or a grandson, I can't remember, and the old Kato, he's training these new kids to do this. Kind of feels a little bit like that here. And I'm wondering if Zimmerman was aware of that, because this predates, I think it predates Kevin Smith's Green Hornet comics, but it would not have predated his movie script that he wrote. So I'm curious. I don't know. But anyway, so then he adopts the kid. The kid is a snot-nosed little brat. The butler is awful. He's yelling and screaming at the kid. And then at one point, the kid, he accidentally finds the secret headquarters of Hawk Owl, which is this permanent cloud that is affixed to the top of the Danner estate. I don't know how this works. I don't know what it's made of, but at one point, the kid starts climbing, and he says, that's a weird cloud, and then he's like touching it, and then he climbs on top of it and falls in. And then Hawk Owl comes back, and then he's talking to the butler. He doesn't realize the kid is there, and he says something like, yeah, you know, the kid is being beat up in school, and I can't say I really blame them. And at one point, he takes the kid to school, drops him off in the limo, and he's like, yeah, and now all those kids are going to beat him up. Yeah, we'll see what happens now. And I am not making this up. That is happening in this book. And then the kid, he is sent to the principal's office, and the principal is openly in front of the kid talking about how Danner, Jack is his name. Sorry, I was thinking it was Hugo. I don't know why I was thinking that. I was watching some Bob's Burgers earlier tonight. That's why. He's openly in front of the kid talking about how Jack Danner's older brother stepped on a rake and it hit him in the head and killed him. And then his parents died in a drunk driving accident. And to hear him tell it, it seems like it very clearly was an accident. But earlier in the book, Jack Danner's aunt, who I guess is the Aunt B of this, from the 60s Batman show, she says, no, your parents were murdered. There was a cover-up. Nothing ever comes of that, so I have no idea who to believe. But he is like openly in front of this kid talking about how Jack Danner had all these deaths in the family, and then he's making these jokes about it, and he's like, come on, kid, you gotta lighten up. And when the kid is like, look, I hate it here, can you just send me to class? And then he's like, ooh, I don't like you kids. So then he puts him in a class, deliberately puts him in a class with all these kids who are beating him up, and everyone thinks that it's just hilarious. And then the next day, these kids are like throwing the kid down the stairs, and Jack is there to pick up Hank, and then the principal's there, and then the principal in front of Jack is like, I'll handle this, I'm gonna break up this fight. And then Hank is on the ground, and he turns around and like punches the principal and knocks him to the ground. He doesn't know that the principal is right there. He thinks that it's the kids who have been beating him up for days. And then Jack starts yelling at the kid for knocking out the principal. And I'm thinking, the principal had it coming. The principal is deliberately putting this kid in a hostile environment and thinks it's hilarious. All the other adults in the story think that it's funny that this is happening. And then we get one issue where the Ultimates come and they try to recruit Hawk Owl into their team. Basically, Captain America comes and says, you're coming with us whether you like it or not. And this is, I think, set right around the time there was a miniseries called Ultimate War, which if you have those Ultimate collections of the Ultimate X-Men run, Ultimate War is collected in one of those. But basically, the X-Men were on the run and the Ultimates were hunting them down. At one point, Hawk Owl does mention, like, I am not going to hunt down mutants for the government. Sorry, it's not going to happen. And once again, then everyone is awful. Hawk Owl does not like the Ultimates, and then they come into his house and basically say, you're going to join us whether you want to or not. And when he says no, then Captain America's like, all right, I'm going to beat you up. And then finally, Alfred, he says, like, you guys get out of here. You're a bunch of thugs. You came in here like bullies and you got treated like bullies. And then after that, then the principal, he comes home and his wife was having an affair with the mailman earlier, and then he didn't really do anything about it. And then after he got hit on the head and probably had a concussion, he goes back home, he stabs the mailman, and then he, I guess, somehow kills the wife and sets the house on fire. This was really weird. So then, on TV, the news is saying, like, the principal has gone insane. He burned his house down and he killed the mailman and his wife. And here's some security footage of him taking over a classroom with his patented paddle that he uses for discipline. And then the butler and Hawk Owl both see this on TV and are like, let's not tell the kid about that. He's going to beat himself up over it because he'll think that it's his fault. And then the butler's like, well, anyway, time for you to go to school. And then he goes to school, and then the principal shows up, and he doesn't only have a paddle, he has like a gimmick paddle that has like saw blades in it and shoots out like tranquilizer darts. And I have no idea where this pathetic loser of a principal got like weapons in this paddle. Like, where did he get this thing? I have no idea. Then he shows up and takes over to school, and now I'm asking myself, hang on a second, before Hank went to school, you were showing security footage of him and I guess the secretary, who's basically the Harley Quinn to his Joker. You are showing security footage of them taking over a classroom. And then I guess they just disappeared. And then they came back and took over to school again, and then Hawk Owl shows up, and then he shoots a tranquilizer dart out of his paddle, and it somehow hits Hawk Owl in the only place that isn't armored, and then he gets kidnapped by the principal, and then Alfred, he goes to try and rescue him, and then, well, no, so then the evil principal guy, he drops off Hawk Owl at his house, and then Alfred tries to go and get revenge, and then he gets captured, and then the kid goes to try and rescue him, and then the day is saved thanks to this old pet owl that lives there at the house. He's the one who actually stops the principal. None of our actual heroes actually did anything. And then at the end, Aunt Bee, she's like, yeah, I've known that you were Hawk Owl for a while now. You have this cloud thing that's permanently on top of the house, and I can't even get into any of the top 3 floors of the building. And yeah, of course you're a superhero. So then she's like, yeah, the kid is not going to be a superhero. And everyone's like, yeah, we're in agreement. And then at the end, Hawk Owl now has a new sidekick named Woody. And that's it. It starts off, like I said, everyone is just awful. Every character in this is absolutely awful. When this kid has been beaten up by every other kid in the school, and he comes home and Aunt Bee is like, how's your day at school? And it's just, everyone is the worst. And then, at some point, it's like a light switch went off where suddenly the book is trying to be very serious. It's trying to take itself seriously, where Alfred is telling the kid, look, you may not like Danner, but he saved all these people. He is actually making a difference in the community. And suddenly, Danner and Hank, they're getting along with each other, and it just doesn't feel like it's been earned. And toward the end of this, I was thinking, okay, at times, this really borders on parody. If this was like a Rick and Morty level, like, deconstruction of Batman and Robin that you would see on Adult Swim, and it took it much further, I think I could see this being something that people would probably like. I wouldn't, but I could see other people liking it. If you had an evil principal who suddenly goes crazy, and then he has a paddle that has buzzsaws coming out of it and shooting tranquilizer darts, and then maybe a character says, where did you get the tranquilizer darts? Something like that. If you took the comedic elements and made everyone awful and just dialed that up to 11, then I could see this being a silly kind of parody, where like Aunt Bee at the end is saying, like, you know, of course you're a superhero, you didn't even try to hide your headquarters on top of the building. The Ultimates came and visited you 2 days ago. Obviously I knew what they were here for. If you had characters who just kind of, they're not taking the tropes of Batman and Robin too seriously, and it's kind of deconstructing all of that, like I said, I wouldn't really enjoy that, but I could see that working. But the problem is, this tries to be a deconstruction of Batman and Robin, but it also tries to just be a Batman and Robin story for the 21st century. By the end, it acts like I'm supposed to be, yeah, Batman and Robin are going out to kick butt and take names, and I'm like, I don't know. It's not really working for me. I didn't like it. I think this is maybe the third time that I've read this. I remember reading most of the issues when it came out, and then I found the trade paperback, I want to say about 5 years ago, although it may have been longer than that. It may have been more like 7 or 8, I don't know. But I read it then, and I don't remember having this much of a visceral reaction against this thing. But I think I bought this for less than $5. I cannot recommend even buying it for that much. I don't see any reason to read this. It's weird that Ron Zimmerman, for some reason, said, what if we did an edgy version of Batman and Robin in the Ultimate Universe? And you had Batman XBs in the Marvel Universe. You had a character from Supreme Power and Squadron Supreme called Nighthawk. And I think this was like 2 minutes before J. Michael Straczynski and Gary Frank did an edgy, modern version of, I don't know what that is, of Squadron Supreme with Supreme Power. Now, you didn't have a version of Robin there, you just had a version of Batman with Nighthawk, but I don't know why they couldn't have just said, let's just do Nighthawk from the Marvel Universe in the Ultimate Universe. I don't know. Eventually, I think Nighthawk did show up in the Ultimates, and kind of they played him as a joke, sort of. But anyway, that's all I have to say. I can't think of any redeeming aspects of this. It's just not very good. And I hate to say that. I hate to speak ill of a work from someone who's now passed. And like I said, I've heard nobody talk about the Get Craven miniseries. I've only heard people talk poorly about the Rawhide Kid miniseries. I really don't know how that was. But this, I can't say that there's any reason to actually read it. So those are my thoughts on this thing, Ultimate Adventures. I hope you guys liked this video, and I will be back in the future with something else. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.